All right, hi guys. Bonjour. For those of you who don't know me, my introduction is always that I work in the International Center and I am not French, but I have French experience and quite literally a French degree. So that's why we're here today. I'm happy you're here. I'm gonna keep an eye on the waiting room. All right, today I'm pretty excited for today's topic. And let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So today, let me make sure that you can see the chat too. All right, there we go. All right, so feel free to jump in anytime in the chat or just out loud. I like to keep this very interactive and conversational and not so much like a lecture because everyone needs a break from that. All right, so today is about French monuments and French architecture. So thanks for Roger for that suggestion. I kind of focused more on the monuments because I wasn't sure of a lot of like the architecture history and the background behind it. But I was pretty interested with a lot of the history and facts I learned about each of these monuments. So I picked four, kind of the top four. And yeah, I also like to start off French hour with a word of the day. So today's is jeudi. Any guesses of what that is? It's okay if not. It's totally different from the English word. It just means Thursday. So that's just Thursday, jeudi. I think in Spanish it also maybe is similar. I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all. That was a total guess, but yeah. So that's today, jeudi. All right. So French. The first monument I have is the Arc de Triomphe, and in English that just means like the triumph arc or arch. And yeah, so a couple of fun facts. I gotta move my little thing to the side. Okay. It took 30 years to build, and it is a big monument, but 30 years is also a long time. And it was commissioned by Napoleon, and they started construction in 1806. And it was in honor of like a battle or something that they won. But the sad part is that Napoleon never got to see it completed. I think he died maybe like 10 years before it was officially completed. But yeah, this is in Paris. Most of the monuments for today is in Paris just because Paris has so many iconic monuments. So this is where this is. It's actually in, if anyone recognizes the name like Champs-Élysées, it's like this really famous shopping strip with lots of more expensive shops. And this is kind of like in the middle and the center of it. And yeah, which is a fun fact. I didn't know until I was actually there. There's actually a tunnel that goes underground so you can cross it because you'll see it in a video in a little bit. The Arc de Triomphe it's like a madhouse. There are no pedestrians. It's like this huge roundabout that is not very structured. Anyway, you'll see what I mean. But they had to build like this little underground tunnel. So it literally just goes from one end of the street to the other. And yeah. Well, that's a very blurry picture, but it kind of looks like this is the entrance to one of the tunnel sides. And it kind of just looks like, you know, like a subway or metro entrance to it. But that's all it is. All right, and here's a quick little video. Also climbing up to the top, that's a thing too. These cute little American boys on a trip.
We're gonna go to the top of the Arc de Triomphe, but first we have to go through the underground tunnel.
So yeah, again, kind of like a metro station area. They have like performers or people like selling random trinkets inside as well.
We're gonna go.
All right, let's get around.
Day Triumph is the tomb of the unknown soldiers for the French. We lucked out. The line to get on top of the Arch Day Triumph is not long. The stairs there are. We're climbing up to the top of the Arch Day Triumph. This is a live camera view. We're on top of the Arch Day Triumph and the views are amazing. Napoleon started building the Arch Day Triumph in 1806 and completed it in 1836. I hope you enjoyed our visit to the Arch Day Triumph. Make sure to watch all of our other videos on Cabin and Travels. Bye!
So yeah, there's not a lot of function to this as some of the other monuments that we're going to see. Again, it was just kind of originally formed as like a celebration, kind of to brag that they won a war. But yeah, as you can, it's huge. It is huge. And if you compare it to the roads, I think the next video I have is the Roundabout Madness. Yeah, so it is pretty high up. It is huge, but there's just not much else to it. But I just wanted to show how the roundabout is. But that's just, it's interesting how it functions, because like you see this car and like I have no idea where it's supposed to go, if it's supposed to go this way or what it's doing. But yeah, I would never drive around there. But the Arc de Triomphe is also like kind of a starting or an ending point for a lot of like the marathons or like parades or events or something like that, just because the streets are so big. Like for example, the Tour de France is, I think it either starts or ends there, but it's kind of like a landmark for stuff like that too. But yeah, any comments, questions before we go on to the next one?
I think it's interesting how they've see the buildings.
Mhm.
Everything's built on that triangular design, and they had to fit the structure of how do you make buildings with rooms that are logical
Yeah,
with that area.
that's very true. I wonder if they're like apartments, offices, anything like that, because that would be really interesting to see the inside of what it would look like. But yeah, cool. All right, next one is the Louvre. I think when I hear the Louvre, I always think of this, well, it's right here, this clear pyramid. But there's actually a lot more to it, which is pretty cool. It is the largest museum in the world, and you'll see why, because it is massive. It was not originally a museum. That's probably why it's so big. It was originally like a palace or a fortress. The videos I show will explain it. And it does house the famous Mona Lisa. Fun fact, the Mona Lisa is not huge at all. It's like the size of a piece of paper, but it's like what everyone goes there for. and it's protected with a bulletproof glass, which is interesting because I don't know why someone would shoot the Mona Lisa. I don't know. But it has over 7,000 paintings, but they're not all French, which I think is pretty cool. So it's a very international museum, art museum. It also has a bunch of like statues and everything like that. So it's not just paintings. Yeah, if you see in this picture, a lot of the tourists, well, they have like these little cinder blocks, and it's meant for people to like stand on top of and like point to the top, like kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But yeah, that's just kind of what that's there for.
The point behind the bulletproof glass,
Oh yeah, please explain.
because of the value of the art, the
Uh-huh.
only way to steal it from the exhibit would be to shoot through the glass, which would draw too much attention. So that's why they use, instead of like a triple pane glass or whatever to protect for environment, they use the bulletproof glass so that you can't break through it with your hands.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Just another layer of protection. I feel like maybe I know the Declaration is also well protected with a lot of glass too, so that makes sense. Cool. All right, so I really like the way this video explains the structure of it. So here we go.
From a medieval fortress to an art museum, the Louvre Palace has undergone 8 centuries of architectural transformation, making it an embodiment of French history. In the Middle Ages, to protect the city, King Philippe Auguste built a square defensive fortress between the Seine and the walls of Paris. 1.5 centuries later, in the heart of the city now enclosed by a new outer wall, the Louvre fortress was converted into a royal residence by King Charles V. Francois I used the castle as his main residence, but it was his son, Henri II, who had the first wing of the modern palace built, which would become a prime example of the French Renaissance style. When Henri II died, his widow, Catherine de' Medici, started building and designing the Tuileries Palace and its gardens for her personal use outside the city walls. King Henri IV had the Grande Galerie built on the waterfront to join the Louvre to the Tuileries Palace. At 460 meters, it was the longest building ever seen in Paris, and the first milestone of an ambitious project that would continue under his successors. At the beginning of his reign, Louis XIV had the Cour Carrée made to its current dimensions and extended the Tuileries Palace, where he lived before leaving the Louvre to move permanently to the Château de Versailles. The Tuileries was used as the seat of power during the French Revolution. In 1793, the Muséum Central des Arts opened in the Grande Galerie of the Louvre. Emperor Napoleon I created a focal point for the Tuileries Garden with the Arc de Carrousel, dedicated to his armies, and had a gallery constructed to unite the northern parts of the two palaces. To complete the works to unite the Louvre and Tuileries that had been ongoing since Henri IV's reign, Emperor Napoleon III boosted construction efforts and built new wings on either side of the Cour Napoleon. He doubled the size of the Louvre and completed the great architectural project undertaken by the kings of France. The Louvre survived the town fire of 1871 that engulfed the Tuileries Palace almost scathe-free. Once the ruins had been fully removed in 1883, the Louvre continued to change, acquiring its symbolic glass pyramid, marking the entrance to the museum in the 20th century.
So yeah, I think it's interesting how it started out just as this little palace home here and just turned into just this massive like empire. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that the Louvre is just kind of that glass pyramid, but like this is the whole grand thing of it. And you can walk in here freely in through the tunnels. You can't walk inside. You have to, pay a ticket to go inside for all the paintings and stuff. But there's a lot of tourists that kind of hang out around in like the big square and everything, and it's really pretty. Again, this is also in Paris. And the Louvre And the Arc de Triomphe is, they're pretty, I mean, a lot of these Paris monuments are in the heart of Paris, so you can hit them all in one day. Well, unless you go inside the Louvre, I feel like that would take a long, 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 long time. And I just wanted to show this little video to show the inside of it because it's, I mean, it's gorgeous. Okay, anyways, I think it's really cool to see the different kind of cultures and types of art represented. I'm not a big art person, so I feel like I can't appreciate or understand as much of the art that is in here. I didn't go inside. My sister went inside when she studied abroad, and she said, like, you guys, like, a lot of in the more narrow hallways, you're like shoulder to shoulder with other people, and like everyone was forever crowded around the Mona Lisa. But yeah. Another interesting fact is that Abu Dhabi created their own Louvre, which is, it looks like a spaceship. It looks really cool. And this video has a lot of fun facts about it. It was just finished in 2017, so it's relatively recent and it looks pretty modern. But it doesn't remind me a lot of the Louvre, so I don't know why they really pushed to have that name, because they paid to have that name. This video talks about it. But yeah, really interesting to me. We'll watch this video.
Whoa. The Capital One Quicksilver card does not need a dog and pony show. It's simple. Unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase with no annual fee. No need to jump through any crazy hoops. What's in your wallet?
not a European museum, and it's not the European point of view. It's a place to see the world from Abu Dhabi. So, of course, here we are a bridge between Asia, Africa, and Europe. This meeting point here, this bridge, it's very important to understand the world of today.
So I imagine this metaphor of the sky, cosmic, cosmographic, with a random system like the stars itself.
So yeah, very interesting to me. I definitely see like the French similarities, and obviously it has, you know, French statues and French paintings. But it's interesting that they paid to loan the name for not even that long, for 30 years. And yeah, so I thought that was, again, very interesting. But yeah, any comments, questions, thoughts before I move on to the next one? All right. Dubai is definitely more and more getting on my list to visit because I think there's definitely so much to see. All right. So I wanted to throw in one of my favorite ones that is not in Paris. So this is Mont Saint-Michel. It's the most visited French attraction outside of Paris. It's in the Normandy region, so like northwest side of France. The idea supposedly came in a dream that the Archangel Michael appeared in 708 to the bishop that kind of founded Mont Saint-Michel and instructed him to build a church on the rocky islet. So, and then eventually he made it happen, which is interesting. There's a lot of history to this. It was hard to kind of squeeze it all in just to a couple bullet points or just in a few videos. But a fun fact I thought was that during the French Revolution, they said, when I was reading about this, it was like during the French Revolution, there wasn't a lot of monks or a lot of priests. So the abbey closed and it was converted into a prison holding 14,000 prisoners at one point. Yeah, so it's interesting the multiple uses this has had. So when I went here, it's very much a tourist attraction. It's not like a city people really live in. There's a lot of shops, eateries, and then of course at the top is the abbey and lots of more walls and fortresses. But yeah, very, very interesting. And the way you, I don't know if I have another picture after this now. The way that you go to it, you have to drive. You see that the tide kind of goes up. When there is high tide, it goes very high up on this wall. And so the way that it's kind of set up to visit it, it's you have to drive out to, I guess, like the parking lot area, and then from there they have buses that would take you from the parking lot to the entrance. So that's kind of this pathway here. And I think some of the videos that I show will show you more of that to it. But fun fact, if anyone has watched Tangled, another poorly pixelated picture, but it inspired the castle in Tangled, which I thought was pretty cool. So you can see the similarities in the shape and kind of the structure. So when you visit it, it kind of, okay, this is a good picture too. It's kind of like a maze. You kind of just go up it. You can kind of stay down here, but you just kind of like loop around and then find your way to the top. And that's how it is. So we'll check out this video.
Mont Saint-Michel. Rocky, cone-shaped islet in northwestern France. The islet, celebrated for its Benedictine abbey, has small houses and shops on its lowest level. Above these stand the monastic buildings, many of which date back from the 13th century and are considered outstanding examples of Gothic architecture. The abbey church that towers over the island is built in 11th century in Romanesque style with a choir in flamboyant Gothic style. Considered as one of medieval architecture's greatest achievements, today it's one of the most highly visited monuments in France, being a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list. The wonder of the West, the Gothic-style abbey was dedicated to the Archangel St. Michael and the village that grew up in the shadow of its great walls. The abbey is a technical and artistic tour de force, having had to adapt to the problems posed by this unique natural site. The architecture of Mont Saint-Michel Abbey is evidence of the mastery and expertise of several generations of builders. The construction of the abbey over a period of 1,300 years on an inhospitable site represent an undisputed technical and artistic feat. This ancient site offers a diversity of architectural styles, as its construction began in the 10th century, continuing up to the 19th century restorations. The historical, political and economic situation throughout the Middle Ages had considerable influence on the works undertaken and the methods used. Since 1979, the Mont Saint-Michel and its bay has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, the abbey is among the most visited cultural sites in France.
Yeah, so this is a good shot of kind of what I was talking about. So this is the, no one can publicly drive here. This is only like the trolleys and the buses that'll kind of ship it. You can definitely walk it. These are huge sidewalks that you can walk on. And yeah, so it's this very long strip that only the trolleys and buses can drive on. So yeah, I think this is really cool. Like the video was saying, it's very, very old. And I think the buildings and architecture of it shows that. It's also very, different. Here, well, we can look this. All these buildings look all very different and like they've been there for forever. And if you look at it from afar, it looks pretty big, but when you're actually there, it's really not that long. It doesn't take that long to kind of walk through it and get to the top. Kind of like the ending point. The video kind of showed it, but it's like this little landing strip at the top of the abbey.
Monuments in France.
Maybe it shows it here, but maybe not. But it's this really nice view of everything. Here you go. This is kind of like the ending point of getting to the top, and it's not going to take you very long to walk through everything. And it's right here. So you climb up, you wait in line to get into the cathedral or the abbey. Then you kind of check out the inside of the abbey, and then you get out through these doors, and this is kind of like where everyone takes all their pictures and everything like that, and gets a view. And this is kind of the view. And if it turns around, I think which it did, it shows the city side, or the city it gets into, but it's just in a lot of water. And again, during some points of the year, there's a lot of high tide, and then it's closed during that time because you can't really visit it then. But yeah. All right. Well, any questions?
I've got some things that kind of interest me about that.
Yeah.
You said that it was, I guess, something that was a suggestion of the Archangel Michael, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's 7 archangels and Michael is actually the archangel of war.
Interesting.
So what kind of meaning would be behind that? You know,
Yeah, just to have a reason to build that. That is very interesting. Definitely adds to.
I don't know if you noticed, but also that the on the top right there at the end of where you stopped the video before, on the very top is the angel with the sword in his hand. That is Michael. That's what that's supposed to be.
Interesting. And it's like, what is it? It's like, well, here you go. It's very small up here. It is interesting because it's not like you don't see cannons coming out of some of the sides or anything like that. It's like I guess maybe they thought of it more of like a sanctuary, safe place. But so that is interesting that it comes from him. Anything else? No. All right, cool. Well, I was really excited, so I'm like whizzing through all of these, but I'll probably do a part 2 because there's definitely more not as known or common like Mont Saint-Michel, but it's definitely on the rise of a lot of traveler suggestions and travel blogs. And that's how it became the most visited attraction just outside of Paris. All right, and of course, we couldn't not talk about Eiffel Tower, La Tour Eiffel. Kind of a French language point. The word tour, if you say it as a feminine, in the feminine form, la tour, that means like a tower. But if you say le in the masculine tour, it's like a tour, like a tour around town or something like that. So interesting point. I was gonna put some fun facts, but then I found this good website that had like 12 facts about it. So we're gonna go through them together. All right, let's see. You probably didn't know. We'll see. Okay. All right, here, I guess it's number 1. There's a secret apartment at the top. This I didn't realize, I guess because it's not like an apartment you can rent out today, but when Gustave Eiffel designed his namesake tower, he cleverly included a private apartment to himself. Very interesting. Famous guests like Thomas Edison. But yeah. And let's see, Gustave Eiffel didn't design the tower, which is interesting because it's his name literally on it.
He actually had a co-engineer, which also was the same co-engineer that was from the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay, cool. It says, was it one of these guys? It was actually 2 men who worked for his company, Maurice.
Maurice.
Okay, cool. It's interesting because his last name is definitely not a French last name, so I wonder if he was from somewhere else. But Emile is definitely a French name. So interesting. The 2 engineers teamed up with a French architect, Stephen, on the plans of the monuments and entered them in a contest to choose the main attraction of the World's Fair. But yeah. All right. I think this is always interesting. The Eiffel Tower was supposed to be torn down after 20 years. And so here it was built in the intent of showing off France's industrial prowess during the World's Fair, but the plan was to tear it down after 20 years. Eiffel had cleverly put a radio antenna and wireless telegraph transmitter in the tower, and the government eventually decided it was too useful to demolish. It is huge. It is very huge. That's why there's several points in Paris that have this Eiffel Tower view, because it's massive. It can be seen in many parts of the city. Hitler ordered the Eiffel Tower to be destroyed. When Germany occupied France during the Second World War, Hitler ordered the Eiffel Tower to be torn down, but the order was never followed through. French resistance fighters got their revenge, though. They cut the tower's elevator cables, so the Nazis were forced to climb the stairs to hoist their flags. I guess that's kind of smart to do that, make them work for it. But it was never torn down, never destroyed. Here we go. like Roger was saying, the Eiffel Tower is a cousin of sorts to the Statue of Liberty. Oh yeah, perfect. Before the Eiffel Tower was built, Eiffel's firm was asked to design the internal frame for the Statue of Liberty, a task assigned to his trusted employee Maurice. They proved their iron handiwork with Lady Liberty first. Yeah, I guess I forget that the Eiffel Tower is very iron made or has an iron base to it. Or maybe I just didn't know that in general, but yeah, very interesting. Okay, there's a, no landscape. Okay. All right, there's a post office in the Eiffel Tower. This I didn't really get. Well, I guess it makes sense. There you go. There you go. Tucked into the first floor of the tower next to the gift shops, there's a tiny post office. Pick up une carte postale, which means postcard, and a stamp and have it mailed from the Eiffel Tower's post office. To get inside any points of the Eiffel Tower, you need a ticket. And there's one ticket, like one base ticket to go up the Eiffel Tower and another ticket to go like all the way to the top. I never did that. I just never had the need to. There's so many high points and views you can get, but it is really cool. And I know there is like a restaurant in the Eiffel at the top of the Eiffel Tower as well. Eiffel Tower doubled as a scientific laboratory. Lots of uses, I guess, back in the day before it was a tourist site. Housed a meteorology lab on the tower's third floor, where he performed studies in physics, aerodynamics, and built a wind tunnel. Opened many doors of the laboratory to other scientists to use the experiments. It's interesting because it's not like a, I don't know, it doesn't seem very spacious for a lot of like labs and all of these shops, but it is big. And the Eiffel Tower moves. The massive iron structure is wind resistant and will sway during a storm. If the weather is bad enough, it can even move. Wind isn't the only thing that can make the enormous tower move, though. The heat of the sun also affects the tower, causing the iron to expand and contract up to 7 inches. That's also interesting too. And I guess it hasn't ever been too bad where they have to put in reinforcements, but yeah. Okay, here we go. The Eiffel Tower is covered in names of scientists. This I didn't know, and I guess I just never really saw or paid attention to. French scientists and engineers working in the 19th century were not forgotten by history. Not only blah, blah, blah. Okay, the engraved tributes were covered up, but thanks to a restoration effort, they are once again visible and eagle-eyed visitors can see names. Okay, so there we go. I think there's a few more. It takes a lot of work to keep the Eiffel Tower looking good. Every 7 years, around 60 tons of paint are applied to the tower. It not only keeps the so-called Iron Lady, La Dame de Fer, looking good, but it also helps keep the iron from rusting. I have always wondered that because, I don't know, it's iron, so it rusts.
And they've changed the colors of it actually in the history. There's
Okay, guess a dark gray from a light gray.
actually it was yellow at one time.
Really? Okay. Interesting. This one I didn't really know either. There's a military bunker underneath the Eiffel Tower. Underneath the tower's south pillar sits a snug bit of history, a secret military bunker. I think it is not, oh, here you go. The bunker has now been turned into a museum and tour groups can explore the space. Again, I didn't go inside. It's a very cramped space. It is, like I keep saying, it's a huge structure, but it is cramped. If you see videos of people like in the elevator trying to go up it, it's a small elevator. And then we talked about this. There's a champagne bar at the top. But yeah, let's see. I think I had a video next. I will say also, there's this green patch kind of right next to the legs of the Eiffel Tower that everyone takes like their Instagram pictures and has picnics on there. That grass is not well kept at all. It's very like dirt and not comfortable to sit on. So every time I see pictures of this green luscious grass, I know that's totally fake. Because yeah. So yeah, this one. Oh, this is a lot more of the structure and how it's built and how it kind of stands. So I thought this was a cool video.
To visit the Eiffel Tower, we'll be heading over to Paris, France. Construction of the Eiffel Tower began in 1887, and it took over 2 years to build. The tower was to be used as the entrance to the World's Fair in 1889. It really didn't have a purpose other than to impress and prove that the engineering could work. The structure was made of iron in crisscrossed beams so that the wind could pass through it. Not everyone liked the tower at first. They thought it would ruin the beauty of Paris. And in fact, the plan was to tear it down after only 20 years. Long story short, it's still here, and it's hard to imagine Paris without the Eiffel Tower. Over the last 130 years, they've done their best to maintain as much of the original structure as possible while keeping it safe for millions of visitors every year. Let's make sure we appreciate the enormous size of the Eiffel Tower. From up here, the people below look like tiny ants. Before the Eiffel Tower was built, the tallest structure in the world was the Washington Monument at 169 meters. The Eiffel Tower was almost twice as tall at 300 meters. It was the tallest structure for 40 years, until the Chrysler Building was finished in 1930. But once the antenna was built on top of the Eiffel Tower, then it was once again taller than the Chrysler Building. But by this point, the Empire State Building was the tallest. In recent decades, there's been a lot more competition to be the tallest. Now, modern skyscrapers are all designed with computers, which makes the process much easier. In the 1800s, they didn't have any of that. It was all designed on paper. Now that's some serious skill. The tower has 3 floors, all of which are open to the public. The first floor has 3 red buildings, which contains a theater, restaurant, shops, and places to learn more about the Eiffel Tower. Towards the center, there's a glass floor around the edges that you can walk onto. I hope you're not afraid of heights. The second floor has 2 decks for sightseeing. There's also the Jules Verne restaurant, which can be accessed by elevator from the ground floor. The third floor is much smaller and mostly for sightseeing. On the bottom deck, you can see out through the windows, or come up the stairs to the open air. Gustave Eiffel actually built his private apartment up here, and the very top is the perfect spot for television and radio antenna. So how do you get to these 3 floors? The first and the second floors you can reach by elevator or stairs. The third floor is only accessible by elevator. The River Seine is along here, and this is north, east, south, and west. There are elevators in each of the 4 pillars. The east and west pillars have visitor elevators. The north pillar also contains a visitor elevator, but it's currently being renovated. The south pillar contains 2 elevators, one for the Jules Verne restaurant and one freight elevator for the tower staff. The elevator tracks go on the inside edge of each pillar. The main visitor elevators are double-decker elevators, which go up and down at a slant. After you buy your tickets, you go in at the base and get on at the top or bottom cabin. Originally, it was intended for passengers to sit down during the ride. But today, the elevators only have standing room. You can get off at the first floor or keep going up to the second floor. What's interesting here is that the angle of ascent gets steeper from the first to the second floor, so the passenger cabins must adjust for that. The machinery for the elevators is hidden underneath the base. You can even take a tour and see this up close. Of course, if you're looking for a little more of a workout, you can use the stairs. The tickets are actually a little cheaper too. The south pillar is the one with 2 elevators. The one on the left is the freight elevator that's only for those that work at the tower. The elevator on the right is for the Jules Verne restaurant on the second level. You can get in on the ground level and ride it directly to the restaurant. To reach the third floor, you have to change elevators. In the very center of the tower, you'll find more of the structure that supports 4 more elevators. They work in pairs to balance each other out, and they are completely vertical, unlike the other elevators we've seen. When the Eiffel Tower was originally opened, one elevator would take you halfway up, and then the passengers would switch elevators to go to the very top. Nowadays, one elevator ride takes you the entire way. There are also stairs up to the 3rd floor, but these are usually off limits to the public. My name's Jared, and I create 3D animations to show and explain how things work. Head over.
I thought that was really cool how it broke it apart, and I didn't even think about like how the base is kind of how where all the motors are and stuff like that. And it is also interesting how if you were trying to find a good like wide angle of it, if you were to look at the Eiffel Tower as a whole, like from way back far, not way back, but you don't really see the little elevator cable cars at all. You don't see them going up and down. Like I guess I would expect, because it is a pretty hollow, not hollow, but it's not like a plastered wall that covers everything that's going on inside. But you don't really see it going up and down everywhere like that, which is interesting. And yeah, I thought it was also cool to think about how it was like seated elevators and stuff. Yeah, seated elevators like that. But I guess they want to squeeze in more people inside, so they make them stand down. But yeah, and then the last thing I have for the Eiffel Tower is that it does light up every night. Let's see if I can find like a little video. There you go. Eiffel Tower, like I don't know, like there is like light shows for special occasions, but every night it just lights up just normally like this, which is cool. All right, and I think that's all I had. Yes. Okay. Any comments or questions that I can maybe answer? Let's see. I'm trying to figure out stop share.
It was actually something that was part of the tallest buildings, as they said in the video. I don't know if you noticed, but that it was used for that. But the 2-year build on that was actually considered a record build of something that size in that day. They actually held a record for a certain amount of time for build time.
It does seem pretty fast compared to how we were saying it took 30 years for some of the other ones. And I'm also thinking of like how you keep building as it keeps getting smaller. Like, do you just take all the supplies and the metal and iron with you up the elevator if it was already constructed, or like, anyways, stuff like that. And like pyramids are really interesting to me to think about how they were constructed and how people got up and down before, you know, elevators and ladders and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just, again, only 4 of some of the structures and historical monuments in France. Again, a lot was in Paris, just because there is a lot in Paris that I would love to talk more about, you know, like the Notre Dame Cathedral, Versailles, and there's a really cool museum in Paris that is sometimes overlooked because of the Louvre, called Musée d'Orsay. That's also very cool too. Maybe not architecturally because it's just a building, but also very cool. That's pretty much all I had today. Any final thoughts or comments or ideas for another time? Totally okay if not.
I had said before, you know, the French engineers have set the base for, you know, everything. There's actually 2 French engineers who played a part in the design of hydraulics. I'm not sure if you know, like with hydraulic cylinders and using fluid pressure to, but also the design of the diesel engine was a French engineer.
Really?
And the 4-cylinder gas engine was a patent that was originated by a French engineer.
Huh. That's interesting.
pretty much every car engine is considered a 4-cylinder or a 4-cycle combustion engine, and
Mhm.
that the original design for that was a French engineer.
Huh. That's interesting. I just because I know in a lot of places in Europe, not just France, has very, very small cars. And I wonder if they even have 4 cylinders. Well, I guess I assume they do if they're that small, but
It would be a 4-cycle, not a 4-cylinder, but a 4-cycle.
oh,
What they consider a 4-cycle engine to a 2-cycle engine.
mhm.
4-cycle engine is what's in your car. A 2-cycle engine would be what they use on like race dirt bikes. 2-cycle engine, it actually is separate. The engine crank rotates twice
Mhm.
in the combustion cycle. A 4-cycle engine, the crank rotates 4 times in the combustion cycle for the engine. So, and the reason behind the 4-cycle is to build more torque to where it could be used for work process. Which is also the diesel engine. The diesel engine was designed to be able to handle heavier workloads than what a gas 4-cycle engine could.
Mhm.
And the designs were actually originated both by French engineers.
Cool. Very cool. I'll look more into that just for personal reasons because I think that's interesting. Because you don't really think of France as like a industrial construction engineer history based place, but there's definitely a lot of architecture and monuments and everything that kind of show it, which is interesting to me. It's cool. Well, next week is spring break, and so I think we're going to take a pause on French hour. I'm not sure if Kaylin is going to take a pause on Irish hour if you guys are going to that one, but I'll ask him and see if he wants to send a message if he is or isn't.
He didn't say anything yesterday about taking a pause.
Okay,
But
I'll
I
ask
think
him just to make sure. Well, there's going to be a pause on French hour, which pause is also used in French too as literally a break. So yeah. All right. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, thanks for coming today. I definitely will plan to do like another part 2 of more monuments and famous attractions in France for sure. But all right. Well, enjoy the weekend, spring break. Take some time to relax and not do work, hopefully. But all right. Thanks for coming, guys. Merci. Bye.